Hi, I'm Lauren Radford, also known as Radderss online. I am a Twitch ambassador, disabled content creator, and voiceover artist / voice actor. I am a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair, and I'm wearing an emerald long-sleeve knit top, and this is my Impact Day 2026 talk about finding success as a disabled streamer. I find that when people consider and think about what success is for Twitch streamers, they think of 24-hour streams, being live every day, having thousands of viewers and subscribers, and endless streamathons, which, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially where the viewer gives the streamer money to extend their stream timer so that they stay live for longer. But when you're disabled, there are many aspects of this perceived success that are actually much harder or potentially impossible for disabled people to attain. And because disability is so varied, how I'm going to do this little talk today is I want to talk a little bit about my journey before I give some general advice to disabled people that want to stream. So for me, I'm a little baby. I'm very new to the scene. Started streaming on Twitch back in 2015. I was relatively newly disabled from MECFS, which meant I was basically stuck in my bedroom. I was struggling, getting very cabin feverish, and I was very lonely because nobody really prepares you for how many people end up leaving your life when you develop a chronic illness. So to get that kind of feeling of social interaction again, I started watching Twitch, started watching and spending time in Twitch streams and developing a community, and I kind of wanted to give it a go. I was able to sit at my PC for a little while at the time, and I had a cheap mic and a cheap webcam, so I went for it. And I remember the first stream I had maybe like 15 viewers, but all of them wanted to talk to me, and they didn't want to talk about my disability. It was probably the first proper social interaction I'd had in like a year at that point that didn't revolve around my health in some way. I don't even remember if I played a game. I think I just spent so much time talking to people and just enjoying the actual like feeling of having a conversation. And that ability to have a connection and community is what has kept me streaming for over 10 years now. When I became disabled, I felt a lot of hopelessness and fear that my life would never get better. And I am so thankful that that's not the case. Twitch as a platform has given me so many incredible opportunities over the years. I've made friends all over the world. I've been able to raise quite a lot of money for charity. I got flown to Hollywood for the Borderlands 3 reveal, and they even provided me with like a care assistant, scooter, and travel bus so that I would be able to have the same good experience as everybody, all the able-bodied people on the trip could have, which meant so much to me because it showed that there is a possibility for care for disabled people in the games industry. Of course, my streaming career hasn't all been sunshine and roses. Every time I've taken time off from stream for my health, that does end up meaning that my viewership drops and I have to spend some extra time re-establishing my community once I'm well enough to be active again. When I developed an autoimmune disease, instead of making sure that the camera was off all the time, I chose to become a VTuber so that I could continue to stream even when I wasn't well enough to be presentable on camera 3-4 times a week. The pro and con with communities is that they are built on familiarity. Over time, viewers kind of know what to expect from your stream, and they know that that's what they want to see because that's why they keep coming back. That does mean that when you have to make changes in your stream, whether it's from a health necessity or that you just wanted to make a change for yourself, it does tend to affect your viewership. And that doesn't mean that you should never change. I seriously encourage letting yourself change and flourish and grow and enjoy new things. But it does mean that your viewers may drift away from your stream, and that is okay. They might just drift away even if you don't change, simply put, because they will change. Before I get into this next bit, I want you to know that a lower viewership is never indicative of your worth. You deserve to have the stream that makes you happy, that is accessible to you, and that doesn't cause you pain or sickness. So now that you know a little bit about me, let's talk a little bit about how you can make streaming work for you and your needs, and also how to combat any feelings of inadequacy that may sometimes pop up. Definitely hasn't happened to me. It has. First, I want to say that the most important thing for your mental health is you need to define what success means for you before you get started. Because the true and harsh reality of streaming is that There is a huge element of luck involved in reaching the I can pay all my bills every month level of success of Twitch, let alone I have a lot of money level of Twitch. So I recommend money not being like your essential, this has to happen or I will never be happy metric for success. And also never compare yourself to another creator. Nobody is living in your body and has to handle what you're dealing with. So everything that you achieve is you and yours alone. It is something that you have done despite any challenges in your life, despite any struggles. This is yours. You did this, and you should be proud of yourself for trying. So my recommendation for finding what you consider to be success for you is figuring out what you actually want to do in the first place. Do you want to be a competitive gamer? Do you want to build a cozy community? Do you want to be like a caricature or an entire character that's not even you? Do you want to DJ, create music or art? Do you want to fish? Like, one of the best things about Twitch is the ability to, quite simply, you can be whoever you want and do whatever you want within the terms of service. Don't be naughty. And so it's really important to consider what you're searching for and what you're hoping to achieve with your stream. Now, a quick chat about potential general streaming barriers. And the first one is fatigue. Because I think for a lot of people with chronic illnesses or disabilities, we understand the bone-crushing fatigue that comes with a sick body. When I started streaming, I fully messed up and did not consider the effect that having ME/CFS would have on like my body in regards to the streams. And I would accidentally cause myself one of my worst symptoms, which was post-exertional malaise, because I mistaked the joy of having a community with feeling well enough to stream, because I felt so happy. And I was like, if I feel this happy, I can't be feeling that bad, because when I get really sick, I get really sad. And it was a whole thing. So my recommendation, start low. If you're going to make yourself a schedule and you don't know how much you can do, start with one stream. Because it doesn't matter if you're just going to be doing one stream a week, and if one stream a week ends up being your limit, you can just make that one stream a week a fantastic stream that people want to spend their weekend at, you know? You may also find that the games that you wanted to stream may actually be too tiring for you to stream. There is a lot of extra mental processes involved in streaming. You have to pay a lot of attention to things that are not the game, generally speaking. You need to keep an eye on chat, any mod issues, whether your bots are working, whether the stream's even properly live, are you dropping frames, all of that. So you might find that the games that you usually play, that you have the mental capacity to play, all of a sudden, it's a little bit too much when you're live. And that's okay. You can try a bunch of different ways to mitigate this. The game may have accessibility settings that you can utilize. They may have an easy mode. Or you may have to search for a slightly less mentally taxing game that you really enjoy, that you can manage to stream. And also, at the end of the day, people quite enjoy when you're not very good at a game. As long as you stay in a good mood. So it's all a fine balance. You have to figure it out for yourself, because everybody is different. My final piece of advice in regards to fatigue is, if a streaming trend is too much, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do those subathons. You don't have to stay live for 24 hours. In fact, you can make those trends work for you. I think I may have been one of the first streamers to ever do something called a reverse subathon, which is where I set my stream timer up really high and ask people to pay me and give me money to reduce the timer and get me offline. And it bloody worked. I mean, it worked really surprisingly well. And it was so much fun. And yeah, I felt a little bit ill afterwards, because it was a very intense stream and involved a lot of work trying to get it to function, because most streamathon and like subathon timers don't actually have a functionality to reduce the time. So there was some finagling involved in that. Another barrier to streaming that might be something that is difficult to handle is visibility. Generally, when you look online for advice about streaming, one thing that's always mentioned is like, good audio, good webcam, and lighting setup. Because, people that watch streamers watch them because they want that human connection, and they can't have that connection without a webcam. But that's not necessarily true. It is true that there are some people that cannot connect to a person unless they're looking at their face. And that's okay. But there are whole swathes of people, huge communities, that will watch people that are VTubers, PND tubers, or just don't have a webcam at all. And all of those things are completely valid options for streaming without a webcam. Because if you don't want to be on webcam, if you don't want to feel like you're being perceived, if you don't want your accessibility aids visible on screen, if you just don't feel comfortable in your environment, you don't have to have a webcam. Another barrier to streaming that disabled people can quite often face is actually financial barrier. Because being disabled is really expensive. I mean, if you're a disabled person watching this, you already know how expensive it is, okay? And there are so many studies proving how much more expensive it is for a disabled person to have the same quality of life as an able-bodied person. And so that means that it can be just an extra expense that's a bit too much for all of us. So you really have to know what to prioritize your spending on and what you need to save up for. When I started streaming, I ended up using like a cobbled together PC using secondhand parts from my friends. And if you already have a PC that can run some modern games, you can likely stream from that PC. You may have to play games that have like a lower system requirements if your PC can't run your fancy Battlefield 6 and OBS at the same time and still have the game look good. But you can make a thing out of it. You could be a fun retro indie game streamer who just plays, low-end games and has a great time with them. You also, if you have a console, if you have Xbox Series XS, Xbox One, PS4 or PS5, you can directly live stream from your console the game that you're playing. It is a lot more limited in terms of what you can do with the stream. I think it is pretty much just the gameplay and your mic if you have a mic connected to your actual console. And it may not be what you want long term, but it's a really good way to get started to see if streaming is for you before you spend any extra money. For me, the essentials are either a PC or a console that can stream and a decent mic. Feel free to get everything secondhand. Start small with your setup. If it works and you enjoy it, you can upgrade your setup over time. Another issue that can also arise is if you are in need of adaptive equipment, they can end up being really, really pricey, especially if you don't have the ability to 3D print add-ons for your existing controllers. So one recommendation from me is I strongly suggest looking into charities for disabled gamers. You may have one local to you, and they may be able to help you find a controller setup that works for you and help it be affordable for you. Finally, one last barrier, physically streaming. Sometimes your body physically can have problems with just the act of sitting up and streaming. Maybe you have difficulty moving parts of your body. Maybe you can move, but that exertion is really, really painful. Maybe you need to lay down and stream from bed. The wonderful thing about technology is that we have so many methods of accessibility available to us. Voice control software, eye tracking technology, assistive software, adaptive switches that allow you to use your mouth to control your game. If you can afford it, there are accessible controllers on the market available to you. Xbox Adaptive Controller, PlayStation Access Controller. You've got brands like Hexagon that do a lot of modular options for your controllers as well. And I recommend if you need assistance setting up your stream, please do ask for it. Have a second person assist you with it, help you set up the assistive software or hardware, because it can be so tricky getting everything right that it's really helpful to have a second pair of hands there to test everything, figure out problems, and just make sure things are running smoothly on your end and on the viewer end. And for those of you that need to be in bed while streaming, a bed desk, a laptop, and a microphone can take you far. Unfortunately, I very much run out of time, but if you ever want to speak to me about streaming as a disabled person or anything at all, you can find me on Blue Sky under the name Radderss. I hope I was able to answer some questions today, give you a little bit of inspiration, and thank you for listening.